Unfiltered opinion.
Sometimes you have ideas and you're not quite sure why.
You secure the bag.
Sometimes you meet people and realize there's probably a reason why you stayed in touch.
Just listen.
Sometimes all the pieces just come together by themselves.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
Welcome to another episode of Insider Exchange. We thought we'd try something new as the month of November kicks off. We are going to be live streaming our Market Matters segments from today onwards. We hope that this adds a bit more value to our community. We hope that in engaging with us in real time, you're able to get a sense of what we're actually thinking. And we thought we'd do things differently for Market Matters because we can now have the conversations at the start of the week and look forward to what's happening in the week and possibly reflect on the week that was. And in keeping with that, we're going to continue to do our Market Matters segments live. The other segments will still be put out throughout the week as well as we have before. But this segment in particular would be live. If you miss the conversation, don't worry. YouTube apparently records these things and you'll be able to catch up on our page under the live tab. That being said, we're going to get straight into Market Matters, and we're joined in studio by a friend of ours, Sean Dendere, who is the head of trading services, or manager for trading services rather, at Trive. They bring us this segment, and they've partnered with us on this particular live segment. Sean, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. Before we get into just the matters of the week and the market matters, if you could build a fantasy team or fantasy list of stocks, right? Let's build that. What does that look like?
Interesting. You caught me off guard with that one, but I had a scapegoat and just be like, oh, Magnificent Seven, that'll be my fantasy team, right?
Good luck now.
Well, I mean, AI is here to stay, so I do think that, the Magnificent Seven will be here to stay for a very long time, especially with, the likes of NVIDIA going crazy, the lack of a better term, right? And obviously, I just want to plug into the rest of, the stocks that I'm looking at, obviously Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc. They need to plug in they're basically playing catch up currently. And once they catch up, in my opinion, I think that we're going to shoot for the stars.
Okay, so are you putting all of the Magnificent Seven in? Okay, cool. So then you've got...
You didn't allow me to research this.
So then you've got what, four or five places left? Starting 11. Give me another 4.
Okay.
They can be local, they can be international.
Fun fact, so NVIDIA went into the Dow Jones on Friday. Ooh. The Dow Jones, the most useless, silliest index. It's a price-weighted index. It's the silliest thing that anyone ever made. Carry on.
There we
go. That was just my fun fact for the morning.
All right, cool. So you're saying I have 5, right? So 4. So locally, I'm going to look at, obviously, ShopRite.
Okay.
I mean, that's definitely going to be in that portfolio. It doesn't seem to be slowing down in Africa and in South Africa at large. We're going to I think I'm going to go into some of the banks. Primarily, I like Standard Bank.
Okay.
I think that, they're able to swim in the tide, right? Depending on what's happening in our economy, whether the interest rates are high, low, etc. I think they're running a good ship as opposed to our other friends in red.
Yeah. You said it, not us.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just putting it on.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we on now?
We're on 9. We need 2 more. They don't have to be South African. They can be Asian, European. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Interesting. 2 more stocks that I'll think of now. I would definitely go for something EV. I'm not too sure, but Chinese.
Okay. Right. So BYD is your option there.
There we go. Right.
Okay.
There you go.
Is that a defensive play? Is that a midfield kind of?
No, it's a midfield. It's a midfield. Okay. I think that, in my opinion, right, from a prospect perspective, I do think in the long term, it's going to be a very serious competitor to Tesla. And you can actually see what it's doing, to the European market. They're trying to put regulations in because those cars are coming in cheap and also at quite a decent quality. So if we're going to be going green, it's a good alternative to have outside of, the leader of the pack being Tesla. And then my last stock would be Supermicrocomputer. Right. It's a bit of a risky one.
You're a brave man.
Where are you putting that?
You see, I'm putting number 9. Number 9. To say,
number 9.
Listen, when you catch the ball, just shoot.
Yeah.
Just shoot, right? I think they were doing quite well earlier in the year, in the past 2 years. I think going back into that AI space, right, they basically construct or they are the mapping of the chips. So, for example, NVIDIA can't build, their chips without the architecture of companies such as Supermicro Computers. So over the long term, if we fix our management and some of the fines that came through, there's definitely potential. There's definitely upside potential there. It's a risky play, but I am willing to put in the risk. But I guess it's also an age thing, right? Gotta just
got time on your side.
Got time on my side. On my side.
Another fun fact: Supermicro Computer having a press conference, 5 p.m. California time on Tuesday, while everyone is going to be looking at the election.
Yes. What's the best time if you want information to just pass through unnoticed? Do it in the middle of an election.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's Sean's starting 11. We'll see how that starting 11 looks. We'll put it up on our pages and on our socials, and we'll get some feedback on that. Very interesting starting 11. Let's get into market matters. We've got a couple of things happening this week. Sai alluded to the elections, and that we're going to leave for last because that's the biggest thing. And it's clearly like nothing else matters. I mean, we literally have FOMC interest rate decision this week. We've got a Bank of England interest rate decision this week, but the markets couldn't be bothered.
110%. I think the markets are quite neutral because we have to see what happens on Tuesday, right? Wednesday, sorry. And then...
Well, it starts today, technically, goes into tomorrow, and then results hopefully by Wednesday, I guess.
Hopefully by Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I think people are scared because we don't know whether obviously Kamala is going to win or Donald's going to win. I think with Kamala, there's definitely going to be, or not definitely, but a sign of policy continuation, right?
Yes. Democrat into Democrat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of keeps the ship steady, if we're speaking about ships. With Donald Trump, obviously very pro-America, America first. I mean, he's also been in the game before, and we know the type of president that he is, right? So that we have to just basically look at the markets from a place of day by day perspective. Up until at least, I wouldn't even say Wednesday, maybe for the rest of
Thursday,
November.
Friday.
Thursday,
Oh, yeah, even November as well.
It's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while for everything to be priced in, all the drama, all the new policy implementations, etc. So that's what I believe. That very neutral week. It's going to be very volatile. Because sometimes I always look at elections like from a trader's perspective, it becomes a betting game. It becomes a gamble. So it's going to come in with super, super high volatility.
Anything with Donald J. Trump associated with it, for me, has historically just been a gamble. Like you said, there's never been a time where I can think of in history where putting Donald's name next to a leadership position equals stability.
Yeah, I agree with you and I hear you, but it's also interesting because I was listening to a podcast here, an American podcast on the way here, and they were talking about unprecedented and all of that sort of thing. And the one person said, well, yes, no, maybe. I mean, think about Lincoln and the elections of 1880 when there was civil war brewing. I mean, think about Nixon. I mean, think about the assassinations in the 60s, all of that sort of thing. I mean, we sit here now and maybe social media amplifies it and we think this is the most consequential. I don't know. I mean, certainly we've got, what Donald Trump did in 2016 was show a way for non-career politicians to get to the top.
Yes.
And also to show a way where the truth was just the least most important thing of your campaign strategy. But I mean, but it is weird. But I take your point. I mean, it is at this point, I think, day by day. And I think markets are, everything else. I mean, you mentioned FOMC, BoE. Normally that would be the story this week. Yeah, they're going to cut 0.25%. Moving on.
We're not even looking at it.
Add a side point to what Simon added there is that what's interesting about Donald Trump's victory in 2016 is like in America, numbers actually don't matter because Hillary had
more votes.
Oh, well,
Absolutely.
Hillary actually had, if it was here, she would have been the president.
Yes. But and that's going to be our deep dive. We're going to be deep diving into the US electoral system. Thanks for throwing forward to that for us, Sean. We're going to look at that because it has such a big bearing on how things shape up and play out and all of that. But coming back to Sai's point around the fact that markets couldn't be bothered. We got news out of China that the Chinese government was sitting down to have discussions around fleshing out that stimulus package. And Asian markets were in the green. South African markets are in the green at the moment. But even that doesn't seem to be taking away from the shine of the fact that Donald Trump could be returning to the White House.
100%. You know, this week, big news isn't big news besides the
There's
election.
big news and then there's news.
Yeah,
news.
exactly. So breaking news now. Breaking news, we'll see that on Wednesday. For now, like we said, day by day. But I think with China, right, just taking away from, you know, the elections that everyone seems to be focusing on, it is quite important that we keep an eye on what their stimulus package looks like. Because like you said, you know, Asian markets are green, knock-on effect to South Africa being green. And if that stimulus package comes in and it's market friendly in order for them to rejig the system that they've been trying to rejig since COVID, I think, and I'm going to go back into the elections, unfortunately, I think that China doing well, right, will maybe protect us as Africa or South Africa from a Donald Trump victory. So we need China to do what they need to do as one of our biggest, you know, trade partners. And with China, it's obviously been consistent. It's been the same government for the most part. And you kind of know what they're going to do, what's coming, etc. Besides this point, because obviously they announced this a while back, and then they didn't give us more information on that. I was like, oh, guys, we're going to save the economy. Great, markets
We'll tell you later.
for like a day, but we'll tell you later. We're going to think about it a second.
But I think to your point, Sean, and Sai, you and I have spoken about this, where the US, the biggest fallout we're concerned about in South African terms is a trade protectionist Donald Trump being bad for Africa. But this is an interesting point now that China could insulate or potentially absorb some of what we'd lose out on, and it could actually end up still kind of balancing things out. But when we look at that, how do you reconcile the China picture with what's happening in the US now? The elections are happening, the interest rates are happening and everything. And Friday we got probably one of the worst non-farms misses we've seen in recent times, and the market didn't even bat an eye.
Well, market didn't bat again elections, but you raise an interesting point around the shift of China. And let's be clear, I mean, Trump started the war on China. Biden's continued it, and Kamala Harris is likely to continue it as well. It's just the levels of extreme. You know, Trump wants to put 60% tariffs on everything out of China, whereas Biden was more pointed, more tech-focused. But it's that split in the world, and it runs along two lines, and it's the same line. We've spoken around gold and the sort of weaponization of the US dollar, which has resulted in a lot of central bank buying from the likes of China, Russia, India, et cetera, and the other split, of course, is BRICS, which, say what you will for BRICS, but there is a queue of nations who want to suddenly join it and you know, use the BRICS currency and bank and stuff. We spoke about that last week, but it's that split that is happening. And I suppose, in a sense, I mean, I'm the odd one here. It kind of reminds me of the Cold War, but the Cold War was military, and you had sort of communism, USSR, and the US, Europe on the other hand. Now we're kind of getting into the China's, India's, Russia's, again, US on the other hand, but it's economic.
That could be interesting. That could be, I mean, we could very well be in the midst of a third or fourth or fifth world war, whatever we want to call it, but it is on very different terms.
Third World War will be fought in the markets.
There we go. And if you are looking to get involved in the Third World War with us in the markets, we are live streaming. Drop us your comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to engage with you. Drop us your questions. Maybe we can answer them while we are on the stream. As I said, the stream won't be for the full show. It'll be for a portion of the show, but you get to enjoy it with us while we are here. Economic war in the markets. Let's wrap that up, because that's interesting, because that's so many different elements to it, right? You've got your defensive lines, China, the US, but they're also on the offensive. You've got us caught in the middle, and you're like,
which side are we going?
Where do we go? What
Exactly.
happens? You know? And I think this is something you and I spoke about when we did one of our other episodes, to say there comes a time where, as a country, South Africa, you kind of need to put down your foot and say, we're going to do what's good for South Africa. And if that means picking a side, are we brave enough to pick a side that is us? So we don't have to pick East or West, but why not pick South Africa as a side?
Taking a page out of Donald Trump's page, eh?
Yeah.
Book. Pick a side.
And to a degree, we do. And to a degree, to your earlier point, is that if we lose out because of a Trump presidency, and AGOA springs to mind, notwithstanding it's minute in the US world, it's big in Africa's world. Let's be clear about
Precisely.
that. And not just South Africa, Africa. There's a lot. We tend to think Go is about us. It's not. There's many other countries. Yeah. Hey, look north, guys.
We might be upgraded. We might be upgraded to no longer qualify for the AGOA thing.
And it's those shifting allegiances. What we can do, and we claim to be non-aligned, and let's not go down that river. But it almost lets us, in an ideal world, gives us best of both, right? We can kind of pick and choose where we want to do.
Yeah.
But it's going to be weird. I mean, you mentioned BYD. So US is going to put huge tariffs on Chinese EVs. Europe's doing the same. And China's like, you guys aren't even 10% of the world.
Exactly.
Cool. We'll take the rest of the world. You can have your 10%. We got the rest.
And that's what you're saying about the BRICS bloc as well. I mean, with the expansion of the bloc, I think now accounting for almost 30% of the world's trade, that is a significant amount of volume that's going to move through there. And if China says, look, we don't need to be the center of the world, we just need to be the center of our little block. And if EVs, like if the BRICS bloc, for example, takes BYDs over Teslas, that's enough to sustain the BYD business. Let's not be under any illusions about that. But I think when we look at things like infrastructure as well, that becomes the next step, right? Is that new block, or however the new markets shape up, you then sit and say, we'll collaborate on infrastructure development, we'll collaborate on putting in the EV stations and the EV roads and everything. And you almost build a world where in the past, everything needed other countries to kind of work, or to globalization to exist. Now you're building a segment where you can exist without a certain portion of the world. And that historically has always fueled wars. Oh, you don't have the oil, we want the oil. Hey, how about a war? Isn't that how things work?
It's like we're living in a globalized world that's becoming less global. That's literally how it feels. It's like, okay, we all one big globe, we're all integrated, etc., etc. But the way we're operating, or different nations, the way they're operating, is almost like, I actually really don't care about you. I don't care about you. I care about me and me alone.
Yeah, it is. And again, I mean, the nuances between Trump and Harris, but, the Biden administration, as I said, has been, putting more pressure on China. A lot of it around tech and trying to stop China get ahead technologically. But of course, Brexit, which happened at the same time as Trump. I mean, back in 2016. We are in a world, and it's weird because when the Berlin Wall came down in November 1989, we thought it was kumbaya and we were all going to be brothers in love and everything like that. And actually, we've kind of gone the other way instead, back into our huts.
As the world becomes more global, it becomes less global. We're going to leave Market Matters there for this week, but as we said, we're going to be live streaming this segment every single Monday from here on out for the foreseeable future, seeing how that works out. So if you've missed the live streams, we will make sure to invite you and remind you before we do the next ones, but they're going to be on the YouTube channel. We'll see if we can do live streaming from our TikTok channel as well, so that you guys can enjoy that from there. But we once again thank our team and our friends at Tribe for allowing us to have this segment and make this segment possible. Until the next one, that's Market Matters. We move on to our deep dive. We are diving into the US electoral system because it's very complicated. None of it makes sense. And the end result is that it affects everyone in the world. What is this thing with the US? International Financial Reporting Standards. The rest of the world uses IFRS. The US uses US GAAP.
Which stands for generally accepted, i.e. which kind of makes
It's not generally accepted accounting principles if you're the only one that uses it.
And doesn't generally, it's like when I go to my doctor and he's like a general practitioner. Dude, I don't want you to be general or practicing. I'm sick.
Fix it. Right. Now, in the US, everywhere else in the world, you get a vote. You go put your vote on a piece of paper. Sometimes you can do it on an electronic computer system. In the US, your vote doesn't really matter if you're from certain areas, or it doesn't matter as much as other areas. When George Orwell wrote Animal Farm, was he talking about the US electoral system?
Oh, and 1984, without a shadow of a doubt. So interestingly, but let's step back a moment. So some countries like South Africa, you don't directly vote for your president, you vote for the party and they vote for the president.
Yes.
The UK is the same, and some others. Some like China, you can vote for the president or die. You got a choice.
North Korea, similar kind of vibes.
Yes.
Got it.
Places like France, you vote for parliament and then you directly elect your president. America has So they've got their 3 chambers, much like we do. Remember, we've got the National Council of Provinces. Everyone forgets about them, but they are there, and there we go.
Okay.
So let's start with Congress, which is the House and the Senate. The House is 535 members.
Yeah, so the House of Representatives, then the Senate, then the presidency.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the 3 pillars we're dealing with.
So the House is 535 members per state per population, so it's weighted per population, and they get re-elected every 2 years. So basically, they're just on a constant treadmill to get re-elected.
So that's like Parliament. That would be our equivalent of the 490 odd members of Parliament, but minus the re-election.
Yeah, so we got 400 in Parliament and then 90 at the NCONP.
Yes. So four.
The Senate is then 2 per state. So California with a big state gets 2, and then Wyoming with only 7 people in the state, they get 2. Sorry, Wyoming. And they only get re-elected every 6 years, but they're on a schedule because remember you got the midterm, and so in 2 years' time we do Congress and we do some of the Senate.
Local government, national government.
Well, it's all national. It's all national.
Well, equivalent to South Africa in terms of timelines.
No, I mean, if you want to go local, because then we have governors, and then every state has their own legislature as well, because remember, they're a federal place, so states are got all these other powers as well.
Yes. Effectively, the United States having 50 states with their own kind of governance and clauses and things can be looked at as almost 50 micro countries or 50 provinces that self-govern.
And then they have a governor, which is like the president of the state, Tim Walsh.
Yes.
And then below that, they'll have a legislature at the same time who they voted, who do statey stuff, and then they send some representatives to Washington to do national stuff, and then they will vote for sheriffs and head of fire departments and attorney generals. And I mean, dog catchers. You can vote
for anything.
Yeah. But the Electoral College is quite interesting. So why do we have this Electoral College? So it started off as it goes all the way back to when they were sort of putting together the system, and it goes back to slaves.
Okay.
America.
Surprise.
Yeah. So the slave owners were worried. They were worried about being overwhelmed by the non-slave owners. So what they did was they set up this weird electoral college type thing. Here's a fun fact. Slaves used to count 3/5 of a person for deciding the electoral college vote, but didn't get a vote.
3/5 of a person, but didn't get a vote. So every 5 slaves would have translated to 1.
No, so 5 slaves would have translated to 3.
To 3 votes.
Well, not votes.
Well,
to electors in a sense. Because so what they do is supposedly electoral college is done by population weight.
Okay.
So if you're a small little state, you get less electoral college votes, and if you're a big state, you get more electoral college votes.
So in South Africa, that would be Gauteng getting almost all the votes, Western Cape coming in second, and Northern Cape getting very little.
Correct, Mundo.
Got you.
Correct, Mundo.
Okay.
And what they then do, but then the states do a winner takes all. Most states, I think there are 2 or 3 where they apportion, but most states, California, Florida, winner takes all. So you win by 1 vote, but you get all the electoral college votes for that state.
Right, which now brings us to what happened with Hillary and Donald in the 2016 runoff election.
Quick thing, I think I misspoke. Congress is 435.
Not 535.
And then 100 for Senate.
Yes.
So then you get where Clinton actually got more votes than Donald Trump.
Physical votes.
Yes.
More number of votes.
So if it was a first past the post.
But less electoral votes.
Because she didn't win the right states.
Right. So then Donald ended up so in an electoral voting scenario, take City of Johannesburg as an area, right? The electoral votes assigned to City of Johannesburg might be 3. Those assigned to Pretoria might be 2. Those assigned to Ekurhuleni might be 1, and that's 6 votes in total. If Donald or if whoever is the president then takes the most there, it doesn't matter that 15 million people in that space would have voted for one particular candidate. The electoral votes are what counts.
Let's be clear. In 2016, Clinton got 48.2% of the vote. Donald Trump got 46.1%. She whipped him.
That wasn't a small margin. There's a big margin
that was a whipping,
2% on a 300 million.
But then you look at this electoral college and say, well, this is messed up. Here's a fun fact. In the last 100 years, only twice has the person with the most votes not also won the electoral college. Hillary Clinton and George W. Bush against Al Gore in 2000.
Okay.
And that was a close election. Gore got 48.4 and Bush got 47.9. So that's
was close.
half a
Yes,
percent.
yes.
But I got to say, you look at the Electoral College and you think this is the most messed up, stupid thing you've ever seen. And then you look at it and it's like, orcs. Kind of works. So it didn't work so good in the 1800s. 1888, 1876, 1824, the person who got the most votes did not win. Fun fact, Jackson got 42.3, Adams got 31.6. Adams won
Wow.
because of the Electoral College. But it kind of works. What it does do, however, is it makes for these swing states. So, the fact that Trump actually went to New York and California is pretty wild because those have been Democratic since
Forever.
Columbus, right? So because there's just no point to it, The Harris going to Texas, why? Although they say Texas is in play. What it does do, it almost just creates hype, tension, and media, but actually doesn't do anything. Why don't we just have a first past the post? The whole thing would be so much simpler and cleaner and just simple.
And if you think about getting the percentage of votes and things, I imagine the voter turnout is quite high anyway.
So America does have good turnout, correct?
Yeah.
There's also the thing, so some places like France, they have a round of voting, and if there's no one gets plus 50, so you'll have multiple people. No one gets plus 50, you come back next week. The UK election thing, front to end, happened in 5 weeks. Our election happened in about 7. This US election, Trump literally declared his candidacy November 2022 at the midterms. This election has essentially been going for 2 years. And I don't know about you, and you all out there, man, I am tired of it.
At some point, we thought we were going to get another round of Joe Biden. Then that didn't happen. So the US electoral system is just a complex system. But somehow, seemingly it works for the United States.
Mostly. I mean, look, Hillary Clinton and Al Gore don't agree with you on that.
No,
And
they don't.
Look, I mean, I think there's a good argument to be said. Look, in the last 5 elections from 2000 up to 2020, in 5 elections, twice, is it 5? It's 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Sorry, 6 elections. In six elections, twice, the person with the most votes didn't win,
yeah.
which is a third. So maybe there's a new trend because before that, it was literally 112 years when the person with the most votes did not win.
Okay.
Maybe we're going to see more of this going forward. And if Trump wins this week, almost certainly not going to get as many votes as Harris. So maybe it's a system that did work and now didn't. And I can't wrap my head around what those, what the changes maybe are. Is that, for example, if you were a swing state now, political parties and the American equivalent of NGOs and super PACs and all of that just pour money into 6 or 7 little states with a smaller population. The swing
because
states
that's the smarter way of doing it. So if you and I are looking at purchasing, if we think about the Electoral College and you think about the seats and the votes, right? Are we going to go and invest money canvassing in an area where you have to canvass through 5 million people for two seats? Or are you going to canvass through 500,000 people for the same 2 seats in a smaller state?
Yeah.
You get more bang for your buck in those spaces.
But do you get elections where the person who wins the popular vote isn't president? And I suppose the question is does America, because let's be clear, this is not
this doesn't apply to anyone else in the world.
Yeah. Does America care that people who don't win the popular vote become president? I suspect the Democrats care because they've been the ones that have been thrown under the bus twice. I suspect the Republicans are like, patooey.
Doesn't really matter. Now that brings us to the other side of it. You and I spoke about this loosely before this conversation, was to say Donald might win the presidency, but you still have to decide the House of Representatives and the Senate. And to get a clean sweep where everybody's worried, it would have to be a Republican win at the presidency, a Republican win at the Senate, and a Republican win at the House. Is that likely to happen? Has that happened in the past?
It has. Obama had it. Clinton had it.
Okay.
So it has happened in the past.
Both Democrats?
correct. That's an observation. So they currently have the House, the Republicans do, but with a very, very thin majority. And the sense there, it's a bit of a toss-up. The Democrats have the Senate, but that's again very close because remember, only a third of your 100 senators are up for election. So it's not the same folks who were up last time 2 years ago because they do a 6-year term.
Yes.
So only a third of the Senate has been voted on every 2 years, whereas in the House, it's every 2 years everyone gets voted on. It could be. I mean, there is a chance. There is a world in which this time next week, the Republicans have the Senate, the House, and the White House.
That would be very interesting. That would certainly shape things in a different light, given where we are now politically and where each kind of
well, then watch the Republicans hate on the filibuster, which right now they love, but then suddenly because what happened, the filibuster is the stupidest thing in the world, where I can just talk and talk and talk, and if you can't get 60 votes, you can't shut me up, and eventually we run out of time or something. I don't understand. But it does away with the 50+1. It suddenly says 60%, and that just seems stupid.
The filibuster. Okay. It's political procedure in which one or more members of a legislative body prolong debate on proposed legislation so as to delay or entirely prevent a decision.
So you could do this, let's say a highly conscientious issue went down, I don't know, scrapping of minimum wage. Republicans own all three houses. They're going to take it. It's no problem. They've got the votes. This is not constitutional, so they just need 50+1. And the Democrats don't like it. And they don't stop it. They can't stop it by voting. They stop it by talking, which seems to me to have just taken your democracy and thrown it out the window.
I can talk you into not implementing a decision.
I can talk so much that you don't get a chance to vote for it.
But then can I not just come back and vote at another time?
Yes, but no, because there's rules and there's process. So yes, you could bring it back, but now you start at step one again, and it takes a long time to get a vote to the floor of the House and the Senate.
I'm so glad we don't have that in South African Parliament, because we would, as it is, it's difficult to get things passed from a legislative point of view. So that's a very interesting thing. We learned something new, the filibuster, something that delays processes.
Biden doesn't like it, and
well, he speaks very slowly, so
actually
that would count in his favor, right?
So I mean, the Democrats want to do away with it, the Republicans don't, but if they own all three houses, they might suddenly decide to, and then it'll be interested to see whether, you know what the problem with democracy as a concept, and there's a really good Freakonomics podcast, go listen to it, it's a couple of weeks ago. Democracy as a concept, if you go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, Plato, Aristotle and everything, they looked at this democracy and they thought to themselves, this is messed up.
How do we fix it?
And we are living that this is messed up.
And I think that's the other part of it, is a lot of the decisions that were taken in the past are now being felt, and we just have to contend with them. Similarly, I suppose, to how the decisions we would then take now around, oh no, we want EVs, and then the future of the world would be like, no, guys, who said you must let go of the V8 engine? And then everybody suffers in future, I suppose.
And Italy, who had had 60 different parliaments and 50 post-war years and stuff. So Germany, interestingly, if you don't reach a certain threshold, so like we've got these small little one-party seats. In fact, we're talking about it, looking at proposing it for municipal level. Okay. So if you don't get 2% of the votes, you don't get any representation.
Right.
So Germany has that. Turkey has it. Italy does not. Because Germany hasn't had a majority party since the 50s. But it kind of works.
It's functional.
It's German.
Yeah, well, anything in German
works.
It's efficient, it works, it does. Some of it works a little too well, but... okay, so the US electoral system makes no sense. It's functional to the US and looks nothing like anything else in the world, but it could also be getting outdated or becoming a little...
maybe.
But then how do you replace it? What do you even replace it? Well, I suppose there are other things like the rest of the world that you can draw on for...
the trick is that politics, and I would say globally, has become so divisive that the conversations that would be required to change it, and the consensus are just not possible. I think that's perhaps the biggest problem. If you look back at politics in the sort of first 50 years of last century, which included world wars and all of that sort of stuff, there was a lot more sense of things were dynamic and they would reach across the different aisles and change things for the betterment of the system. And you get a sense that that doesn't happen anymore.
That's what it's supposed to be, right? Civil servants are supposed to be there to serve the public. But that's where we're going to leave our deep dive. And in our Investor Insights this week, we wrap things up with taking a look at the latest amendments to the Maintenance Act that suggests that you are now eligible to be blacklisted for maintenance if you default, and you can be blacklisted with the credit bureaus. This could prevent you from getting credit. That's about time, I suppose. I mean,
Surprised it wasn't there.
yeah, you'd think it would be a logical thing, but we've been battling these sorts of things for the longest time around doing the right things and, just being good people on certain aspects. But where it comes to maintenance and having children, I think it's one of those views where, especially if you look at the social grant side of it as well as one side of the conversation, we've got the child support grant. We need to have greater levels of responsibility on all sides of the equation. If you are part and parcel to creating a human being, you are part and parcel to looking after that human being. And the concept that we have now, and we'll probably need a deep dive around this on the child support grant, where we continuously pay for people to have children and support those children, is creating a sense of grant dependency we don't need. But that's not what we're chatting about here. We're looking at a different side of it around the maintenance side of it. Is if you're supposed to be paying maintenance and you default on the maintenance, you are now at risk of being blacklisted, which could affect your credit profile and your credit score because you're a non-payer.
I'm amazed it took so long. Because it's a court order, right? You go all the way back to the 80s. My folks got divorced. I don't know what the court process was, but my dad agreed to pay $300 a kid, and he did until my sister was out of varsity or something like that. And it never went up. It got killed by inflation, but he paid. To his credit, he paid. Friend got divorced, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 years ago. The process and the legal documents and the lodging and how the maintenance was worked out and the requirements and everything. And it then gets, is it high court? I don't even, maybe, whatever. But the point is, it's now essentially a court order, and there's a mechanism for how it will be defined and how it will be increased and how it will be managed. And the partner who has to pay the maintenance, if you haven't got a job, or that's not your problem, that's et cetera, et cetera. I'm amazed that it wasn't already on credit bureaus. I suppose the difference is that credit bureaus is like Edgar's, right? They've got a lot of accounts. They do a file dump. You haven't paid. They dump it into the credit bureau, TransUnion, whoever, nice and simple process. This is going to be harder to get into the bureau because it's individual. So there's a parent out there with kids. Maintenance isn't paid. How does, and I'm going to take a flyer and say it's a she, how does she get that into the system?
Right. That's one side of it. But here's another spanner in the works. Simon, Kirsty, married, happy days, everything's great. Simon has a side person.
Ooh.
The side person now sues the married couple in community of property, is the disclaimer there. In community of property now means it's a joint and severally liable estate.
Yeah, but first mistake,
But now,
don't do that. Carry on.
Don't start there, right? But in that scenario, right, there's an external party suing Simon, but Simon is unemployed. Does that now mean that side baby mama can sue main wife because in community of property?
Correct. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And we've seen...
Well, not sue. It's blacklisting. But now who gets blacklisted in that respect? So if we blacklist...
Well, collectively, because you're community of property.
No, but we blacklist you. The implications of the blacklist and the liability of repaying,
See, I would imagine,
that would extend to someone else, but only you would be blacklisted, I would think.
Imagine you're both blacklisted.
No.
Why not? You're both not paying. You were silly enough to get married in community of property, man. You take the bad with the bad when you marry COP. There's no upside to community of property.
Okay, but when we go for things like blacklisting in credit bureaus, I suppose it would be similar to how you'd have someone liable for any sort of
but it's also
debt.
so let's say we're married, we got kids, I'm paying maintenance and you sue me because I'm not paying the maintenance. I should be, I'm not. So you go to the credit bureau, you're going to have to prove the requirement of maintenance. Easy enough, there's a court document.
Okay.
You're going to have to prove I'm not paying it.
Okay, fairly easy. The bank account is light.
But then what happens if I say, well, I'm giving you cash every month? See, that's where it starts to get more difficult. What happens if I say, if you do this, I'll burn down your house, i.e. I threaten you?
Fair enough. I can solve the cash one. You go to P&A, you go to CNA, there's a cash receipt book, you write a receipt every time you pay the maintenance. You get people to sign.
For it.
As long as you've got it documented and stuff, then, there are solutions out there.
Okay.
But I guess the crux of the matter comes down to the fact that you need to be aware of this. If you're in a maintenance kind of conversation or dispute or whatever it is, you could now have your credit profile be affected by that. That being said, that's what we're going to leave it at for Investor Insights, because we're going to get into our picks. We're going to update our wall. There's been a couple of things that we've looked at on the wall that we're just not happy with where they're sitting. We're going to add some new guys to the wall, but we're going to start with updating what we have existingly. We're going to look at local picks first, and we are updating. We realized that our blue chip section is fairly light, and we do have some really good blue chip stocks in South Africa. So the first thing that we're going to do, and this is not even a topic for discussion or debate, we've seen this, is we're moving ShopRite from like it to blue chip. It should have been there from the beginning. We apologize that it wasn't.
It was oversight.
It was an oversight on our part. We will get our team to look at that. How dare us? Especially because it's ShopRite, right? It's ShopRite. What else are we liking at this point? I think we have We Buy Cars as neutral. Advotech was kind of neutral because we had a bit of a miss on some of the other educational providers. Bar was neutral. That's staying neutral until they clean up what's happening on their side. Sun International, we said there was an alternative because we liked Toho and the others. ABSA, there was definitely an alternative for. DRD Gold, I think we kind of had an alternative for that as well. We avoided Baldwin. We're not updating that. We avoided Quantum Foods. We're not changing that. Northam is looking better now because of the platinum pricing, and we had it as a void. Do we want to leave it there? And I say better because last month, Northam had a really good month. If I look at pulling up a chart now, and if I look at a chart of Northam for last month, we were punching quite high at some point. We didn't end the month as high as we would have wanted
we got to 150.
Yeah, we clocked north of 140, so we definitely got to 150. We still did 19% in the month after closing out the month around 130. And we've opened the month above 130, which leads me to believe we might take out 150 again. Is it worth moving out of a void yet?
I think it might be time for platinum.
I think it might
But
be.
let's be clear, it might take a long time.
Yeah, and don't get into all of the platinum counters at the same time. So if you're in something like Sibanye, which we've got under easy money already, and you want to double down on your platinum exposure, think about that.
This is very much the very sort of pure play. I don't like Anglo Platinum because of that overhang from Anglo American. Implat, Shaw, Northam, like it as a platinum producer. Some good chrome assets, because suddenly when platinum's under pressure, chrome becomes all important. And the PGMs are, I mean, at some point, Wayne McCurry will always remind you that the cycles turn. We just don't know when. At some point it turns. Yes, I look at platinum. Yes, I look at particularly palladium, and it's like, these charts are looking interesting. These are definitely looking interesting. Palladium 31100 is important.
Yeah, I liked Northam personally. I liked Northam at around 90 Rand a share, which was, when was it? August, September-ish. It was quite a while back. It was when we were all bearish on platinum. I was looking at 90 Rand as a good level. We kind of bounced right off 89 Rand almost perfectly. So I have been biased on this, and I'm trying to keep my biases out of the conversation as much as possible. But that's kind of why we have the wall, right? Sometimes the biases work in your favor. Sometimes they don't. We're moving Northam out from a void because it might be time to no longer avoid it. Everything else kind of looks okay. We still have Coronation under liking it. We've got Sasol under liking it because Pietri loves it.
Just
and that
for
might
the record,
be another thing because the Sasol's bounced around that 100 Rand level.
For the record, I was not there.
That was not your pick. Disclaimer. I'm not responsible.
I was in Durban on the beach eating bunny chows when you oaks went on Sasol.
Let's look at Sasol now, because we came down from we bounced up to that 170 briefly. We came down. We're now at 104 Rand, having bounced off that 90 Rand level. It doesn't want to go below 99 Rand, 98 Rand, which I'm happy with because I think 100 Rand is a decent support level. It's at 104 today. Is it enough to start moving? because they have problems. And do we leave it in like it or do we move it out of like?
This thing should be like dislike. Do we have a dislike column?
It's called avoid.
There we go. Come on, you read that article on MoneyWeb about the peeps from Wits who basically say Secunda's going to cost R1 trillion. Who has R1 trillion?
So someone will find it.
Patrice, but apart from
we
Patrice
can bail out.
Motsepe.
We can bail out a couple of things. Why can't we bail out Sasol? Also,
Because it's the single point worst emitter in the known universe. I was going to say planet Earth, but no, Uranus probably has.
But now also with Sasol, it's emissions and stuff by comparison. And when you speak to the CEO and you give him that stat, he says, look, it's nice and great to call us the single biggest emitter, but look at other companies relative to our size.
They provide a third of this country's petrochemicals.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
So, and for me, if I'm looking at 100 Rand and we're bouncing off 100 Rand and I'm liking it at this level, the only real downside I can see is possibly down to about 80 Rand. So we're at the top of that 100 Rand down to 80 Rand range, right? But the fundamentals for Sasol, it's not like a company that's going to suddenly say we're going to stop doing what we're doing.
Does it go broke?
We just got electricity back, guys.
Yeah, but does it go bust? So
Does Sasol go bust? That's a good question, because when you're contributing so much towards power supply of the country or the energy mix of the
and
country
28,000 staff
and the jobs and everything, this is the one company on the JSE where you could be like, you know what? A bailout there kind of makes sense, whereas a bailout for an SAA or something else might have made a little less sense.
Gotcha. And there was some good news out of Europe late last week in terms of chemical production. One of the big European chemical producers has put one of their plants on care and maintenance.
Okay, so we will circle back to Sasol because there's a lot and we don't have a lot of time.
Put it there. Just put a little asterisk next to it.
There's an asterisk next to Sasol. All right, let's add some picks to the wall. We're adding Clicks and EOH today. Clicks.
Yeah, Clicks is your blue chip, man.
I love Clicks.
You know
They're
what
simple.
Clicks is? Whenever I'm teaching people about operational leverage, the idea, revenue's up 10, HEPS up 15, dividend up 20, and you need a real-world example. Clicks.
Clicks versus Discount?
Oh, Clicks.
Clicks. Cool. Clicks has got
Blue
a spot
chip.
on the wall straight into blue chip. That's a rarity. It's not very many companies that make it there. EOH, battered, bruised, beaten. EOH shareholders have been through the most in the longest time. Stephen Van Coller came in. They changed the business.
Yeah.
They tried to get it on the right footing, but he's since exited, and it doesn't look like the market has confidence in EOH.
Well, I mean, the stock's up. I mean, it's doubled from its April lows of about $1 to it's now trading at 204.
Oh, we clocked 2 Rand now. Okay.
Yeah.
I left us at 1 Rand 30 on EOH.
No,
so we've done quite a bit then.
I think their big strategy is like a name change.
I can think of a couple of companies that have done a series of rebrands.
Yeah, it's not the first. Yeah, and the results were they lost less money.
Okay.
How do they get back to profitability? Because with respect, they sell a commodity, right? They sell licenses. I don't know if they've got their Microsoft license back, but they sell licenses. I mean, the olden days we would call companies box droppers, where they would sell you a computer, but you could buy it from 10 different people. It was even the same color. It just had a different logo on the front.
Fair enough.
And this is kind of what EOH does. And they are tainted, right? Which is why they're doing the name change. They are, you're a government department and EOH is bidding and you look at them and you're like, yo, guys, we know what happened here last time. You're not a government department. You're an independent company and you're like, yo, EOH, like, I don't want the hawks. And that's not fair. I'm not saying there's still dodgy stuff happening there. Yeah. But again, quoting Wayne McCurry, markets have memories.
Oof. But then what do you do in that situation? Do you delist, forget about it, and just move on? Because if markets have memories and it's going to take them another 5 years to forgive you, that's 5 years you are not going to see much. And even if you start shooting the lights out, again, in a space where it's a homogeneous product, there's no product differentiation, there's no guarantee you're going to be the market leader or acquire the most market share in that space.
Yeah, and your market cap's 1.2 billion. That's a lot of monies to pay for something that you could buy something making money for 1.2 billion. Do you break it up and sell the bits off to other businesses? Because, how long was Stephen from Collier there? 5 years?
5 years. 5 year turnaround plan, in, out, done, and it was crisp and to the letter.
Yeah.
They did it.
So they still lost money. He's been gone a year or so now, and they're still losing money.
Yeah.
And how do they get back to profit? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a rhetorical question because I don't know what the answer is.
So avoid?
Yeah.
Avoid until we know more. International picks, BYD versus Tesla, probably BYD, and Lotus Bakery in Belgium. Why are we going after a bakery in Belgium?
Because folks like Keith are smarter than us and he likes it. So it's a family-owned business. It started working in 1934 and they make biscuits, the Biscoff cookies, which I didn't know because I'm not a biscuit person, but people who do know biscuits like it.
Yes.
And then they start to move into sort of allied areas, spreads, ice creams and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But if you think the cleverness of it, right? A biscuit, simple, right? My wife can make a biscuit. It tastes lovely. I'm not a biscuit person, but it's a lovely. And that's all they do. And then they wrap it. It's obviously a good biscuit.
Clearly.
Wrap it in a brand and they become this crazy, valuable company. And I can't pull data up because as soon as you go Lotus, there's 500 Asian, there it is, Lotus Bakeries NV, Belgium company. And that chart is just bottom left, top right. I mean, a decade ago it was 940, now it's 12,000 whatevers. It's not cheap. Probably never has been cheap, but it's the simplicity. And it's kind of like Coca-Cola, right? What does Coca-Cola do? They make Coke. There were other soft
They
drinks
used to do a
out there.
couple of other things with their Coke beforehand, but they've cleaned up their act.
Yes. Yeah, and you've got Pepsi and Fanta and ginger beer and
But the Coca-Cola
and
is the
cream
big seller.
and at least 3 of those are superior drinks. Yet there's Coca-Cola for you. So it's that strength of the brand. And I like it that they've just somewhat done it in biscuits. And easy
Simple.
to do. They've actually got a factory here in South Africa, apparently.
Okay.
It's simple to run. It's simple to operate. Your complexity sort of comes from supply chains and you know, the like. But it's just a nice, easy business that makes money.
It's a nice, easy business. It's very simple, and they make little, simple things. As you say this, I'm trying to pull out a chart of Sprouts Farmers Market because
That was the other crazy one.
it wasn't so crazy because it was
No,
that chart.
gent.
It was the bottom left to top right, and we're like, how do you even get in when it's at $100 a share at the time? It's at 130. So Sprout is doing well.
They call it theatre of food. So it's kind of like farmers market. The farmers lovers. What's the thing?
Food lovers.
Food lovers.
Yes.
Food lovers. It's kind of like that.
Oh, we have a very interesting relationship with food lovers, and we'll circle back to their salsa mix one day. We'll get our team in on that. We've got some very, very personal views onto those. BYD versus Tesla.
BYD.
BYD is going to do it cheaper. Tesla did it first, yes.
Sure.
BYD is going to do more mass. They're going to do more volume.
And Tesla is valued too much as a tech stock. And
Which they are, because Tesla, for all their EVs that they make, they're a data house. They're a data center. They're an information house.
But, you know, are they, I mean, that launch that Elon had a few weeks ago with self-driving taxis and the bus and everything. I mean, particularly the bus. I mean, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer because it's nice and simple for self-driving, right? The problem with self-driving is that, hello, Joburg.
Yes.
Taxis, potholes, pedestrians, hardy dogs.
How do you self-drive when the taxi driver doesn't use his indicators? Self-driving works in a country like Netherlands where you've electrified your roads.
San Francisco works
or those
as well.
places
Yeah.
where...
But imagine a self-driving bus which just has a route.
Yes.
It just and make it strong. So just like elbows out at the taxi or the whatevs.
It must just keep moving forward.
But the idea of mass adoption of autonomous vehicles, Waymo's there, but only just. GM pulled their Cruise mostly because they killed someone and tried to deny it. I just think Tesla is far too expensive. You must remember that wrapped in there is also the old Solar City, which is struggling. We've also got the robot stuff. Come on, like the robots. I mean, the racists loved them, but aside from that, those robots were all make-believe type of stuff. I just think Tesla has got the problem of being first mover, everyone catching up. The problem of being pure EV when the move is to hybrids, and the problem of just being chronically expensive. So to me, it would be BYD.
There we go. Simple. We're adding BYD to the list. We're going to leave our investor insights there. Please remember, we are live streaming every Monday from now on. Join us for that live stream and share your unfiltered opinions with us. Give us your thoughts and insights around all the content that we do put out. If there's anything in particular you'd like us to take a look at, give us a heads up, send it through to us, DM us, put it in the comments on any of our videos. We respond to all of the comments on all of our platforms. As usual, like and subscribe on those platforms. Until next time, investing isn't hard. Just try it.